Little did I know what was going to be involved in the restoration of this item when I bought it. I could see it had the potential to become a fully functional, beautiful looking tool once again. As with most of my restorations, I didn't want the item to look brand new when we'd finished it, rather that it had been lovingly used and looked after by a craftsman all its life. The item in question is a sash fillister plane, used for cutting rebates, or rabbets as they are also known, in sash window frames. Sash windows are the style of window where the pane slides up and down in a channel counterbalanced by weights. As you've seen already, some of the working parts were very reluctant to come out by themselves. Some needed a little percussive persuasion, but here we're going to use some penetrating oil to help us release the screw. After a 10-minute soak, the screw comes out quite freely, making it easy for us to release the depth stop. With all the parts separated, it's time to go into the workshop and start the restoration. First of all, we're going to address the metalwork. We're going to start with the blade using the Axminster Craft AC 150BB buffing machine. The blade had certainly seen better days, but I was sure the quality of the steel was going to shine through. The areas where the pitting was heaviest needed a little more encouragement with some metal polish. Using different grades of polish on the mops brought the blade to a beautiful shine. The name of George Buck & Company, stamped on our blade, dates our plane to sometime between 1830 and 1930. Next, it was time to restore a keen edge to the blade. A quick strop later, it was razor sharp yet again. Now to give the depth stop a good polish. First we're going to use a green polish. This is the first stage polish for poor condition non-ferrous metal. Non-ferrous metal is any metal that doesn't contain iron. Our depth stop is made of brass. Brass is a combination of copper and zinc, although it does have a tool steel sole to it. Now it's time for the depth stop adjustment screw. A quick clean of the threads will allow us to unscrew the nut that retains the brass plate. Because the screw has a large iron content, we're using the blue polish. Blue polish is the second stage polish for ferrous metal. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for watching our videos. Please like and subscribe, as it helps to grow the channel and gives more people the opportunity to watch them. It's turned out really well. Now for the brass retaining plate. With all the parts cleaned up, we can now reassemble them. The plane's arms are held in position by wedges. One of them was broken, so we needed to make a new pair. For authenticity and to make the wedges look correct, we're going to use the wood of an old plane. For this, we're using the Shepak HBS 20 bandsaw. It's a new addition to the workshop and continually proving how useful and versatile it is.
Links in the description below.
The 12mm blade and the adjustable blade guide allow for cutting intricate shapes. I discovered that the blade retaining wedge wasn't the original one. It didn't hold the blade in position very tightly, so I thought we might as well make another one, then at least all the components will match up, being made of the same timber. Now that the wedges are roughed out, it's time to shape them properly. Here I'm using a vernier gauge to ensure that the new wedge is exactly the same thickness as the old one, as a snug fit is essential. Whilst a belt sander is a cheap generic eBay job, it works a treat sanding the wedges to their nearly finished size. The belt I'm using here is 120 grit. It's essential to keep checking the thickness of the wedge against the gauge. It's easy to take a little bit more off, but it's ever so difficult to stick it back on again. The wedges are nearly in their finished state, just a few final touches with a file and they're ready for sanding. A quick going over with 120 grit and they're almost finished. The final touch comes with a bit of 400 grit. Beech is so tightly grained that 400 grit gives it a really nice finish. Now to address the main blade retaining wedge. It's the same routine as the previous wedges, just a few more intricate shapes involved. Again, the beauty of the tightness of the grain of the beechwood allows it to be shaped easily. A final shaping with the 120 grit, then it's time for the 400 grit finish. The more you do these restoration projects, the more you find out that when you buy things from auction sites, they very often don't come with all the parts they ought to. This plane was no exception. An item called the nicker was missing as well, and the wedge that retains it. The nicker scores the grain of the timber if you are cutting across the grain, so the grain doesn't split when you cut the rebate with the main blade. I decided to use an Allen wrench to make the nicker because its shape lent itself to what I had in mind, and of course the quality of the tool steel it's made from. There were quite a few tools used in the making of this small item, and it was nice to be able to get the grinding wheel out and have a play. I've had this particular grinder for about 20 years, and it's still going strong. I got it from Axminster Power Tools all those years ago. I'll put a link in the description for their latest version of the same thing. A final bit of shaping on the belt sander and a quick polish on the AC 150BB buffing machine. And there's a direct comparison between how it started life and how it's finished. I'm very happy with that little item. Now it's time to address the woodwork. First, we're going to use some paint stripper to peel back the coatings that have been put on it over the years. Remember, it's essential to always wear the correct protective equipment. Now, in situations like this, it's important to work smarter and not harder. Always allow the paint stripper enough time to do its work. After the paint stripper has had sufficient time to penetrate through the layers, we're going to use some medium steel wool. This will remove any lacquers and varnish but not affect the surface of the timber. For those hard to reach places, we're going to use a plastic bristle brush because again we don't want to scratch the surface of the timber. Given the intricacy of the design, this is quite a time-consuming process, but clearly it's all going to be well worth it. Delayed gratification is truly the key to the art of restoration. If you can take your time and enjoy every stage of the process, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that the end result is as good as you could possibly have made it. With the paint stripping finished, we can clean off the surfaces and neutralise the paint stripper using white spirit. This also helps to get rid of any of the stubborn residue that's still hanging about in awkward places. As I've already said, it's the attention to detail that will make all the difference and determine how proud you are of the item and how readily you will show it off to your friends. That's every single little bit, not just the big sexy bits. Now for a spot of methylated spirit and wire wool, just to give it a nice deep clean, so that when it comes to the polishing process we trap in as little of the old dirt as humanly possible. You may have noticed that one of these arms appears to be loose. It's built on purpose this way, so unnecessary stress isn't put on the arms or the guide whilst it's being adjusted. Again, it's the attention to detail now that will pay dividends in the future. No area can be left uncleaned, as this may hamper the smooth operation of the tool in the future. A quick rub down with white spirit and the woodwork's ready for its final finish. It is virtually impossible to do too much surface preparation. Any old herb can slap on a bit of varnish and make it look shiny, but there's a world of difference between that and restoring it to a state where it looks as though it's been used all its life but looked after. Back to the buffing machine to give all the brasswork a quick polish. Last little bit of preparation now, just getting rid of the wax polish with a bit of white spirit. Now the plane has been thoroughly cleaned, we're going to apply the final finish. For this we're going to use Tung oil. Tung oil is extracted from the seeds of the Tung tree which is native to China and a few other Asian countries. We could have used linseed oil, but tung oil creates a harder surface and dries to a clear finish. Linseed oil has a slight yellow tint, and I wanted to leave the wood as natural looking as possible. I've thinned the tung oil 50-50 with white spirit so that it soaks into the grain of the timber as much as possible. I left the first coat to dry for 24 hours, then applied a final coat of neat tung oil. At this stage you'll be glad you paid extra attention to detail when cleaning the item, as its true beauty now becomes enhanced by the oil finish. I'm very happy with the way the wedges we made now blend in with the rest of the plane, making them look as near as possible to how they would have been had they been original. This coat was allowed to soak in and harden off for a few hours before a final wipe down. Now it's time to put it back together again and see what we've achieved. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please like and subscribe. It helps us to grow the channel so that we can make more videos and give more people the opportunity to watch them.